Rock Chat with Trace.
In this podcast, I'm talking to Andreas Lill, the drummer for Vanden Plas, whose new album is called The Ghost Xperiment, Illumination. Hello, Andreas, and thank you for doing the podcast.
Nice to meet you. Hi, I'm happy to do that.
What are your influences?
Personally, my influences are, in the beginning, punk music. I really started with punk music, kind of Sex Pistols, Damned, stuff like that, The Stranglers, and that was a beginning for me because I've had a friend which played guitar, and so we were talking to start a band before we have had instruments, and we did like very much punk music, especially Sex Pistols. And after a while, I found out that my friend was not that good at guitar, which is okay for punk. But then I went on with stuff like Van Halen and Journey. That's my main influences. The 80s, Van Halen and Journey, yeah.
What are your favourite two albums and why?
I very much like the Journey Captured Live album and, of course, Van Halen 1984. Not to forget the Beatles and not to forget Ringo.
How did you get into music?
When I started doing music, I was like most people in that time, a teenager. And of course, everybody's interested in music. If you are a teen, that's a very interesting thing. To listen to music, you identify yourself with the music you listen to. And I thought everybody's looking about what can I do when I'm young. And it's sports maybe, or music, or dance, or whatever, which is kind of sport. But in my small village where we lived, which is very close to Ramstein, where you have the air base, we were able to do sports like soccer or field games. And I was good at field games, so but at the same time I started playing drums, and I thought that playing drums and having a band is much cooler, because you are somebody. At that time, you've been really outstanding if you played an instrument. If you played any instrument, if it was guitar or drums, you've been one of 1,000. I lived in a small village with 1,000 people, and I was the only boy which was allowed to play drums. So you've been very outstanding. But maybe 50 boys were playing soccer. So that was very interesting for me, and everybody's searching for doing something special. And what do you really like? And it came out for me very quick that I really like to play drums and having a band. And lucky me, there were some older friends of our older brother in school which have had a band, and their drummer sucked because he was smoking pot and he was not very stable, and we couldn't count on him. And so they asked me once to join their band for rehearsal, and that's the reason which put me very quick into a band.
You released the Ghost Xperiment, Illumination, on December the 4th, 2020. Can you describe the album?
The album, I think the story in the album is where people tried to create a ghost, and that's a story which is going on both of the albums. And in a musical way, I think it is a little bit like we are going back to our roots. It's more, I think, more rock and heaviness on this album than on the albums before.
Why did you choose to release When the World is Falling Down as a single?
There are some reasons. We discuss that with a record company because they have sometimes another view than the band, and came out that is the best song to describe the total album. And of course, if you release a video of a song, it should be a song which makes sense to play live. Because if you make a video of a song and you think that is a strong live song, so it doesn't make sense. And I think that song is really powerful to perform live too.
Can you explain Black Waltz Death?
This song is a little bit outstanding, and I wonder that everybody which I talk to is there's something special on that song, and everybody wonders why. And this song is recorded years earlier. We did not record that in this recording session. That was a kind of an overleft song from past productions. And we pimped it up a little bit and recorded some additional stuff and parts to it. And that makes it very outstanding because it's not very, very old, but it's maybe 6 or 8 years old. And so we've been in a different mood at that time, but we found out that this song fits good to the total concept of the new album, and so we went back on that song for this album.
How does Ghost Engineers compare to the other songs on the album?
Oh, it's totally different, I think. So if you work on an album, it's much more interesting if you have different stuff. One song is close to another. That's okay for some reason, but if you have totally different stuff, that could be interesting. And that's, for us, it's a choice we make to have very different not styles, but yeah, in that case, yes, styles, but that keeps some stuff interesting for people.
Why have you chosen to do a Ghost Saga?
The reason to do Ghost Saga is, that's some stuff Andy's really taking care about. Of course, he's writing the lyrics and he has to feel comfortable with the words he's working with and the story behind that. And Andy is very interested in mystic things, and when he came up with that story about a ghost, so that's something new, and we decided that's a good idea. Because if you have a story which is, in this case it's a story which really happened. So if they really created a ghost or not, that's another thing. But you have a story which is already there, and you have to find your way to express yourself with the music. That's easier to work on the thing which is there instead of having some random song lyrics. So, and Andy likes very much to have a story behind his words.
Is there going to be another Ghost album?
I don't think so. Because it's not like now we want to do everything with a ghost story. It's something which came up when we first started to do some kind of concept albums. It was more like there was a kind of a red line which is connecting all the songs together, but it was not a really story. The first time we came up with a full story was Christ Zero, which is based on the Count of Monte Cristo. And from that day on, Andy really liked it to have a complete story. But it's not like now we have to do ghost stories every time. I think next time we decide to put the focus on something else. But always it will be a little bit mystic.
You've been getting good reviews for your new album. What does that mean to you?
Oh, that means much to us. Of course, first of all, the reviews are written by journalists, which seems to that they like us very much. And that's, of course, much better instead that they don't like us and write bad reviews. I hope that the fans, the people, like the album too, because that's something you really need to have to go on tour. If you want to go on tour nowadays, you need to have a lot of followers and people which are willing to go to live concerts. And if you have great reviews, that makes it easier to go that way, but that's not all. You have to have the sales in a commercial way. You have to sell your CD and to be able to play live, because it doesn't become easier to play live nowadays.
How does this saga compare to earlier albums?
I think it doesn't change too much to the earlier albums since Christ Zero, because there's a story. It's the same thing like if you record a new film, a new movie. You have a different story, but it's still a movie. And this is kind of a movie which is going on in your head while listening to music, which should support the story in some way, which is different for everybody. That makes it much more interesting than having finished product like a film, because you can create your own characters from how do they look, how do they act. And if you have a movie, the character is like the people from which are making the film. They see the character, they create it like that, and it's just a different story, but it's still a concept album, but it's not a total difference to the story. The story is different, but it's not a total different thing like the albums before.
How has your music changed over the years?
Beginning, when we started, we were a rock band in our hometown area, and we played everything, every club, every school fest we could play. We took every chance to play live, and over the years we wanted to record a CD, because we found out if you want to be in competition with other good bands, you have to have a product which you can sell, which people can take home. And it's the same thing with demo tapes. Every band did. And at some point we came up with the idea, if you have a demo tape, you are still one of the smaller bands, and so let's do our own CD, because that's a little bit on a higher level if you have a CD. That's the beginning of the 90s, and at that time it cost a lot of money to produce a CD. And at that time, with the first CD, we were engaged in the theater for playing Jesus Christ Superstar, and everything have had a deep impact on us, and so we came up with the best live songs we've had at that time, and we put just that songs on the CD, because we said, okay, we have 20 songs which we play live now, and that's the 9 or 10 best songs we have now. Let's do a CD. Without thinking about any story or whatever, or do they fit together in styles, whatever. We just thought that's the best songs we have now. And we put our first CD, Color Temple, and after that produced the CD totally by our own and sold it as a finished product to our first record companies, which was a very lucky day. But then we found out that these progressive style songs were much more fun for ourselves to play and to create, and then we went on with the God thing. And if you follow that CDs from there on, we deeper and deeper into the progressive stuff, and that ended up in not just doing progressive music, but also to fit in a story.
How has lockdown affected the band?
It's very hard. Of course, like every band, we are not allowed or able to play live shows at the moment, so we try to be creative at home. Everybody found his own way. Everybody is suffering from that situation. Maybe musicians are part of the people where the lockdown strikes it harder, because we've had some engagements at theater too. We can play live with Vanden Plas. We can play our theater engagements. Everything is cancelled. It's not just postponed. They try to postpone it, but it's too much in the next year, so they cancelled some stuff, and that is also hard. And everybody is trying to do the best thing what he can do. It's like I'm practicing a lot. And I'm practicing a lot of totally different stuff, like playing drums with brushes, which I never did before. But I did like it very much, and so I started to really go back like a student and try to play drums with brushes, because maybe after the lockdown, I don't know what is going on. Are there really big concerts, or are there some concerts allowed which where you have tables, sit, and people just are allowed to sit, so you can fit just a small amount of people into a club. And then I come up with some kind of band and say, it's no problem for me to play, because I'm very quiet, because I play with brushes. That's the plan.
Do you think any new music you will do will be impacted by COVID?
I don't think that things will change too much for the artists, because if you sit at home now and you try to work on yourself and create new music, but you are still covered by your style, and I don't think that it comes out like there are very, very new music styles, because if you go back in time, there's nothing totally revolutionary. When the Beatles came up with their kind of music, it was also not totally new, but it was very successful, and every 10 years some band came up to do something very new, like Slipknot. I mean, that's very new when they came up with that stuff, but in the past years I don't think that there's nothing very, very new where somebody created something very new on music which wasn't there before. It becomes harder and harder to do something new. It's more like you go back to older stuff. It's like the fashion. In fashion, you can't do anything new. They came up with ideas, but they put on new fashion which looks like fashion in the 70s, and maybe young people think, oh, that's new, because they didn't live in the 70s. With music, it's sometimes the same. If I have students, drum students, they sometimes come up with very old stuff like Led Zeppelin and Beatles, because they were searching in their father's LP collection, and they found out, wow, that was really cool music decades ago. And so I think the music which is old now, which may be 30 or 40 years old, it's still good music. When I like really to listen to older stuff, that fits good because I'm old now.
Can you explain about your sixth rock opera, Last Paradise Lost?
Yeah, I mean, Paradise Lost is a story, and we are working on that theater production, which is planned to go to 3 towns in Germany, which is, I think we play it in each town maybe 15 or 20 times, and it's also a story which is based on a book, Paradise Lost, and we try to put that on theater stage. At the moment, we would play it in Kaiserslautern, here in our hometown, but also that is postponed. And so if we are glad, we play it next year, that 3 different towns, which is Kaiserslautern, Münster, and the third town is not a German town, it's Innsbruck in Austria. The lockdown and COVID brings.
What are your plans for next year?
Stay healthy, and the plans are coming back to normal. I mean that there are no really, really big plans. It's like trying to go back to normal, like we've had planned for 2020, like doing our live shows, promoting the CD, playing our theater live shows, and that's enough, because it will be hard enough. I think when everything is really back to normal, everybody wants to restart his business, and that's for the bands the same thing. Every band wants to go on tour then, because everybody took a break, and everybody is there to say, now I want to go back on the street and playing my live shows. And I think at that time a real battle will start between possibilities to play live shows, because the promoters, they can't take every band, so they always will pick up the bands which makes the most sense to play that venue, because everybody needs to make money. And I think that will get a hard battle, all the bands or artists in total.
Anything else you wish to mention?
I hope that a lot of people find the time now to listen to music in total, in general, and also to our new CD, and I hope they like it and I hope they buy it, because also that becomes harder. It's easier to stream stuff, and but sometimes it's really nice to have a product in your hands and have a booklet and everything, because it makes it easier than for artists to go on working, because it's still expensive to create stuff like that. And I hope that people are brave enough to go to live shows after everything is back on track normal, because I can understand there are people which are still in fear to get in contact to a lot of more people, because if you go to a concert, you are very close to a lot of people. And I hope this fear will disappear, because that makes it impossible to play bigger shows. I mean, if it's allowed to play live shows, it doesn't help if people are in fear to go to live shows. Another thing.
Vanden Plas' new album, The Ghost Xperiment, Illumination, came out on the 4th of December 2020, and I'd like to thank Andreas for joining me on Rock Chat with Trace.
Thank you very much. Okay.